Okay, let's talk texture atlas for our foliage. I'm just going to create a plane. So I'm going to click on plane and open the channel box. And in input, I'm going to choose polyplane and we're going to set our subdivision height and width to 1 so that we just have a blank square. And let's make this 100 by 100 just so we can see it. I'm going to assign my material. I had already come into Maya and imported the leaves that I've made. So we have a plane and our leaves. So we can turn on double-sided lighting by going up to lighting and choosing two-sided lighting. And then that way we can see from both sides. So basically what we want to do here is to cut the geometry so that we match these leaf shapes. And we're going to do that by preserving our UVs and keeping our geometry minimal. So let's preserve UVs. And so we're going to do that because our plane reaches that full square in my UVs. So we don't want to change our image or, stretch or anything like that. So to preserve my UVs, I'm just going to double click on my move tool. And in my tool settings, I can choose preserve UVs and we'll just click and check that on. So what I'm going to do first is duplicate this. We're just going to do that by hitting Control D. Now we have a second plane here. And I'm going to cut this up using the insert edge loop. If you prefer the multi-cut tool, you can use that, but I'm going to use the insert edge loop option. And we're basically just going to make duplicates of these and cut out each piece. Let's start here and back into object mode. We'll go to face and we'll actually select all the other faces and delete them. So now we just have our one piece of grass. So I'll rename this grass and we'll duplicate this again. Okay, so we now have all of our pieces separated. And now I just need to add in more edge loops so that we can actually fit it to the aesthetics. So I might send one right up the center and we'll just add some throughout. And then we can edit the topology more. So I'm just gonna delete these empty spaces and we can even move the vertices in. Notice how this is not affecting the texture at all because we kept preserve UVs on. So we'll just do something generic like that. And let's slice this one up. We just want to add enough topology so that there is room to give it a little bit more depth. So maybe I'll add some here. And then we can go in selection mode and delete these unused faces. But let's take these vertices and we'll just move them in. And then once we have like the overall shape, we'll just use this one as an example. We can make a duplicate of this one, right? And we want to avoid it being flat, right? Trees, branches, plants, like they don't exist as a plane. So we want to fake that depth. And the reason why we made a duplicate is so that we can continue making different variations of the same one. So we can keep the original. So I'm just going to select this whole edge loop actually and maybe bring it up. Might bring this one up as well. So you do this with vertices or edges. faces. We're just nudging them to create that illusion. So you would make like a couple different variations. You can use some of these other tools like in the deform tab, the lattice, etc., to sort of push and pull this to give it a little bit more depth. But essentially, this is what you would be doing. And the next step is to adjust the pivot and place it at the origin so that we're set up for mesh or creating our own cluster. So let me move the pivot by hitting D on the keyboard, and we're going to snap 2 points because I want it to always come out of this spot. So I might turn off snap now and just move it back. This is sort of like the origin. It's always going to come off of this point here. And then we'll rotate it up 90 degrees. We'll move it to the origin. Let me just group this and then hide it. And then let's snap the pivot to the origin. So this would set us up for mesh. I'm going to modify freeze transformations, delete by type history. So we would either use this for our mesh network, which will be in another video, or we can create our own small cluster. So if I wanted this to be like a bush or something, let's say I made a couple different other variations here, but we would just have a few duplicates. So I just hit Control D a couple of times and we can just rotate and scale this. And you'll see Maya does this thing where it clips through sometimes. Okay, so to fix the clipping when you have your different planes and leaves at different angles, in your render settings in the viewport, if you go up to renderer and you double click on the hardware renderer 2.0 settings, you just want to turn on this alpha cut prepass. And if you click on that, you should be able to see all of the planes that you have. Okay, so we want to break this up a little bit more to not make it look like it's just the duplicate of the same plane. Let's go up to the deform tab and under nonlinear, I'm going to choose bend. And so you can see we get this like white line here. In the channel box under inputs in bend 1, we can adjust a curvature there. So I'm going to slide this up. And you can see it's slightly moving there. We just need to push it more manually. So I'm going to type in 30. So we have bend of our mesh, and we can change the low bound because I want this bottom part to stay sort of at the center there. We can just click and drag that to 0 so that it stays there. And then let's just keep pushing the curvature. I'm just going to move this bend handle down a bit so that we get that like stretch. And then we can just do the same thing again. Let me add another bend. We can also use something like the lattice. So in the deform tab, lattice, it's going to give us that lattice here. Let's just go to lattice point and we'll select all of those. I'm going to change my axis orientation to object. We'll just give it a nice curve. Maybe we'll twist it. And then, when you're happy with those, you just want to edit, delete by type history so that it locks those into place. So I can make like a cluster like this. I can combine these, mesh combined. We can set the pivot back to the origin, and then we can make a mesh network out of this as well and use this for like a cluster of branches for the tree. So this concept works for all of those different types of foliage that we have here. Just add your edge loops to give it depth and deform it so that we can see it from all different angles and it doesn't look so much like a plane like this. So maybe we would need to add a lattice to this one if we wanted to push it. And then we would just have to edit, delete by type history, locks it into place.